It's been about a month since Bungie had some massive layoffs. A lot of the Destiny 2 team got laid off, including a lot of the community managers, marketing people, developers, the security team, most notably, that came up this last weekend. There is a lot going on when it comes to Bungie and them just having bad news cycles lately. And we just found out that it just keeps getting worse. And a big part of the reason that they're laying off so many people is because, Sony may end up taking over and possibly shutting them down the line. We'll have to see. But hey, before we really get into it, I'm LittleBobby here with Direct Gaming, and we're going to be talking today about this new article from Rebecca Valentine over at IGN. She is great. Go follow her on Twitter, or I think she's on Blue Sky as well. But she is great. She has an article titled "Bungie Devs Say Atmosphere is Soul-Crushing Amid Layoffs, Cuts, and Fear of Total Sony Takeover." We're going to go through this article, talk about all the key points, because this is really big and has a lot of sweeping implications for Destiny 2 as a game as a whole. So the article starts, 1 month after a major round of layoffs impacted roughly 100 employees of 1,200 that Bungie has. Those remaining at the Destiny developers say the cuts, as well as other cost-cutting measures, came alongside an apparent scramble by studio leadership to avoid a total Sony takeover. As it currently stands, Bungie is, on paper, a fully independent subsidiary of Sony, but its board of directors has been divided since the takeover in July of 2022. Among its current members are PlayStation studio head Herman Hulst, Senior Sony VP Eric Lempel, Bungie co-founder Jason Jones, Bungie CTO Luis Villegas, and Bungie CEO, I said Bungie CEO, I meant Bungie CTO Luis Villegas, and Bungie CEO Pete Parsons. The board as a whole is split between between Sony and Bungie representatives, while Parsons serving as the tiebreaker vote. So still basically, with the board of directors, that's who's going to make all of the decisions in a company. Basically right now, Sony has majority control with having Pete Parsons being that tie-breaking vote. He's almost always going to vote in favor of Bungie, right? And that's how they're remaining independent. That's a smart move. The article continues, but speaking to IGN under condition of anonymity, multiple current and former Bungie employees describing a department meeting that took place shortly after the layoffs, in which leaders hinted that the shared power may not last forever. Sony did not respond to IGN's request for comment on this piece. Bungie declined to comment. Declaration of dependence. While the exact details of Sony's deal to acquire Bungie remains unknown to the public or employees, sources say they were told by leaders that their current split board structure is contingent on Bungie meeting certain financial goals. If Bungie falls short of certain financial thresholds by too great an amount, Sony is allowed to dissolve the existing board and take full control of the company. And with Destiny 2 expansion, the final shape delayed into the next fiscal year, and Bungie still investing heavily into Marathon, many employees understand that Bungie is struggling to meet the necessary targets to keep its last vestige of freedom. Such a takeover wouldn't necessarily be shocking given its 2022 acquisition, but would nevertheless be a stunning development for a company that has historically prided itself on being independent, or on its independence, It was at this looming threat that Bungie leadership, not Sony according to Parsons, made the choice to lay off roughly 100 people last month. But the cost cutting at Bungie isn't just limited to personnel. Multiple current employees confirmed to IGN that the company has implemented numerous other cost cutting measures recently, including a studio-wide hiring freeze, reduced travel budgets, elimination of holiday bonuses, keeping its annual Bungie Day virtual, delaying its week-long company pentathlon event to next December, and reducing numerous morale events such as cooking and knitting classes from monthly to quarterly. Bungie is also pausing or fully ending benefits like annual employee compensation adjustments to meet market rates, its new hire lunch program, employee donation matching, its peer recognition program, and gift cards for employees' birthdays. And yearly studio performance bonuses this year will only be the contractually obligated 80% minimum, after being above 100% for good performances several previous years running. Let's break down all of this. If you are a developer, a good developer, you're going to want to find a company that's going to offer you perks. So these people who are working there joined Bungie going, hey, I'm getting a lot of really nice perks working for this company. Now we're seeing all of those perks are basically being cut away. Studio-wide hiring freeze. That is very bad because If you're in a studio-wide hiring freeze and you're trying to get talent for your next new IP that you're trying to launch, and you're trying to keep a huge global IP going, basically saying we're not hiring anybody, that's a huge deal. Reduce travel budgets, that makes sense. That's one of those things that you would cut first if you needed to. Elimination of holiday bonuses. That's fun. That happens right before the holidays. And I guarantee you that there are certain bonuses that wouldn't be touched in that. Keeping its annual Bungie Day virtual. I sort of understand this. That could be a cost-cutting measure that maybe people are okay with, but it would affect morale. I could see if people really enjoyed it. Delaying its week-long company pentathlon event to next December. I don't know what that event is. Maybe if someone, a Bungie employee happens to watch this, or a former Bungie employee, you could let us know what that is. And reducing numerous morale events such as cooking and knitting classes from monthly to quarterly. Now that is one of those things I saw a lot of people going, oh my goodness, they don't get their knitting classes. And, when you run these tech companies, they have so many miscellaneous perks like this, and that's what draws in really good talent. This is very standard tech company stuff. A lot of people go, oh, the devs are so entitled with cooking and knitting classes. Well, like a lot of devs will work 12 hours a day. And so, having a monthly class where they can take, like 2 hours to just sit and like kind of relax and knit at work. It's a good perk. And that might be something that a lot of people look forward to. Same thing with cooking. Maybe they want to learn to cook. So what time they can spend with their family, they can make, more meals for them. And I know Bungie's notorious for not having crunch and all that, but there's still going to be people who are crunching, who are working like crazy, right? And that's what these kind of perks are for, okay? The annual employee composition adjustments to meet market rates. Basically, we're not giving raises, right? That's not good. I've worked at a company where I've worked there for multiple years, not gotten raises. That's why I stopped working at that company. Because people, when they go, oh, I'm not getting a raise, I'll go somewhere else. It's really that simple. New hire lunch program, that could be a morale thing, whether or not people do it. Employee donation matching, that is something that every good company should be striving to do. Donation matching. I had that when I worked with a very large, national bank, a U.S. bank, not U.S. bank, but a U.S. bank. Peer recognition program, some people like that. I hate that stuff personally, but some people really enjoy it. And gift cards for employee birthdays. You telling me you don't want a gift card? Right? All right, we're going to continue on with this article now. Along with the recent layoffs, this has resulted in massive decay in morale within the company, according to IGN sources, one of whom told us that the mood within the studio has been soul-crushing over the last months. And this doesn't sound like management is making any significant efforts towards improving the atmosphere either. According to those still within the company, employee frustration and sadness in the days and weeks following the layoffs was met with surprising amount of indifference or even outright flippancy or hostility from management. Several people we spoke to told us that leaders had reiterated across multiple meetings that they couldn't guarantee there wouldn't be more layoffs, with two specifically confirming previous reports that Chief People Officer Holly Barbakovi outright stated that the layoffs were a lever the company would pull again. So I have never been at a company where where the company goes, oh yeah, we just laid a bunch of people off, and we'll do it again if we have to, right? That absolutely sounds like leadership going, we're out to save ourselves. And whoever Holly Barbakovi is, I understand you're the CPO, right? The Chief People Officer, like you're the HR head, right? The Chief People Officer is like the person who's like, well, we gotta hire people or fire people. You just sound terrible. And this makes me sad because I actually applied for Bungie a while back and I got turned down, but kind of glad at this point because that is not an atmosphere. Like I never, with working with Direct Gaming here, I love that I never have any concerns about that. And when we have concerns with the teams and stuff, our leadership here does step up and they take responsibility, at least, within the scope of what they can. Some things are just out of everyone's control, but when they need to take responsibility, they do. They go on to say, we know we need the final shape to do well, one source told IGN, and the feeling at the studio is that if it doesn't, we're definitely looking at more layoffs. Others said they were rebuffed repeatedly and discouraged from even discussing the layoffs whenever they tried to ask questions. Employees in one department recalled a post-layoffs Q&A session where a department head was asked if leadership taking salary cuts to prevent layoffs had been considered, only to respond that Bungie was, quote, not that type of company. I have never heard management in any and I've had bad managers. I mean, I've worked for a lot of different places, done a lot of different jobs. I've never, ever heard a company, a person in leadership go, no, we're not there. Like, you could tell they're dismissive, like, hey, we're not going to talk about that right now. It's one thing. But to basically go, hey, is leadership going to step up at all? And then go, no, we don't do that here. We don't have leadership step up, right? I want you guys to imagine, you guys saw, I assume a lot of you saw Game of Thrones, right? There's a scene in the Battle of the Bastards, right? Where Jon Snow is out and he's in front of the whole army and he walks out in the field because he's leading from the front. That is leading from the front. When you are the general, the generalissimo, the captain, whatever you want to call it, you go out front and take responsibility for what's happening. And this is like the most really just gross, really gross thing I've ever seen from any sort of leadership going like, well, we don't do that here. We don't take responsibility for our mistakes. You do. It's on you, employee, that you are going to pay for our mistakes. That's not good. What's more, sources we spoke to pointed out that many Bungie employees who were laid off were beloved community leaders within the studio, including many who had spearheaded employee inclusion and support efforts. Several people we spoke to expressed anger at the layoff of Bungie General Counsel Don McGowan, who played a key role in Bungie winning a historic lawsuit against a player who harassed a Bungie developer. And I believe that was DMG, the one who was like stalking and harassing DMG. It was a community manager. And they won the lawsuit that said like, hey, you're doing like this cyber harassment like this and doxing people and like just constantly like sending stuff to their house and creeping on them. We're going to make you pay for it. And I believe it's something like $250,000 that, that young man has to pay because he decided to mess with the company, right? And mess with an employee, which like it made it seem like Bungie was looking out for their employees there. But I guess not, because the guy who won them that suit is now gone. Others laid off included a noticeable number of members of Bungie's DE&I clubs, right? Diversity, Diversity, ethnicity, and inclusion or something like that. Including co-heads of Pride at Bungie, Women at Bungie, and Accessibility at Bungie. And I believe Liana Rupert was one of those, and she is rad. She was Dirty Effin' Hippie on Twitter. She's very, very cool. And she got let go. She was one of the big proponents of accessibility at Bungie. I know that. When combined with other resource cuts, these dismissals have led to fears that those clubs might be shut down. While researching this article, IGN noted that the public news articles announcing Women at Bungie and Accessibility at Bungie on its official blog were no longer accessible on the Bungie website, though it's unclear exactly why or when this happened, if it's just an unintentional recurring bug on the blog. Someone says, I'm not angry, I'm upset. This is what I came here to do, one person said. It feels like many higher-ups are listening to the data and are like, we just need to win our fans back. They still like us. No, they don't. We got rid of some of our most knowledgeable, beloved folks who've been here for 20 plus years. Right? Like I said, Michael Salvatore. Every day I walk in afraid that I or my friends are next. No one is safe. So basically, unless you are one of the top people at the company, they're just going to let you go until they have nothing left. All right, next section is called Bungie Eroding. Another anxiety sources discussed with us was that many of the reductions made at Bungie recently were part of the broader move towards outsourcing. Multiple individuals across various departments told us they'd heard discussions with their teams plans to increase outsourcing both before and in the wake of layoffs. One team where those discussions have already become a reality is the quality assurance QA, because QA is the first one to get shafted. I worked for EA and that's what happened to us. They just outsourced us. While outsourcing QA is extremely common practice industry-wide, Bungie historically has also enlisted an army of in-house embedded QA testers working within individual teams. So setup the studio has prided itself on for years now, but QA sources within the studio are now afraid that this strategy is on its way out. We previously reported that Bungie's QA team saw a rash mysterious departures in the months before the layoffs, and we also noted the team-wide culture shift toward a general pool of testers consisting of both in-house and outsourced individuals. Former and current QA department members at Bungie tell us that in the last year, the team has seen increasing workloads and responsibilities, with more and more disciplinary actions taken for seemingly minor infractions. They also perceived growing hostility from team and company leadership, including a meeting in which QA was said to be referred to by leaders as non-developers. In total, sources tell us that over 10% of Bungie's internal QA department was either fired or laid off between early October and early November, including both the reported layoffs and the departures leading up to them. Now, if you do not know what QA does at a game company, they basically are the people who are responsible for finding glitches and bugs. I did that myself for a couple years for EA way back when. I got to work on some rad titles, Mirror's Edge, Dead Space, Dragon Age, and I've talked about that quite a bit. But QA is a hard job. It's a lot harder than you think it is. A lot of people think it involves you just sitting there and playing video games. Well, when I was doing QA, and I did the end QA where, hey, the game's got about 2 months to come out. We're doing the cleanup QA. The main QA team, who has worked solely on one game, they've done all their work. My team was the compliance quality control team. So we would go through and make sure things like relating to first party, like, hey, can I hit the button on your Xbox controller and pull up the XMB, like the crossbar? Can I hit that? And that's going to come up to show me like my trophies and all that. It's going to come up whenever I press it. It's going to come up every screen, every time, right? So we'd have to play a game and we'd have to press that button and stop the game, do it, and do that, you know, every time there's a new screen. If we're in the middle of some big thing, we would just like do it to see if we could trick the game into not going there, right? We had to make sure, you know, start, select, they all did their proper things, right? All the basic instructions in the game and stuff like that were absolutely correct, right? So we had to pay attention to a ton of little stuff, and you have to do it with every game. We had to do it with different games. Then not only that, but then they would have us find bugs that QA maybe missed just through general gameplay, and then our job was to track them down. And so sometimes there was bugs, I can't give specifics, but there have been bugs that I worked out that would literally take me the better part of 2 weeks, because I would find something and I wouldn't know what caused it. So I had to eliminate every single variable in every single thing to get to find or to get to the place that led me to that bug, right? And so if you change one variable, that bug might not happen. But if you meet all these variables in X way or in Y way, that's a critical bug, because let's say like player just completely loses control of a character, right? Like you just all of a sudden can't move your character anymore. Right? That's a game-breaking bug, right? If you're playing a game and all of a sudden you can't move your character, that's a big deal. QA is very important because when you find stuff like that, that's what we do, right? But sometimes you'd have to track down, okay, well, you know, it's because like the you know, it go as deep as stuff like, hey, the start menu says press start, but you can start by pressing X. But if you press X there to start it, and then you go into this menu at this time, and then you do this option, like going on, like say you're going on 2 paths, and you go to the right path, you know, after a certain point, that's when you lose your character. So you have to try all of those things and find out exactly that path of inputs, timing, and all that leads to that. Because if I found it, let's say just by randomly playing through, the chance that someone else is going to have that happen. So we have to figure out what leads to it. Then we have to communicate with the team like, hey, this happened. And then you have to do regression testing to make sure that it doesn't break anything that you already fixed, right? So QA is very, very important, and them just outsourcing, that's going to lead to worse games. I guarantee it. Like having an in-house QA team is so important. That's what made the games in 2008, 2009 for EA like really great. And a lot of people still to this day, I might mention, oh yeah, I worked on Dead Space back in the day. I worked on Dragon Age. I worked on Spore. They'll go, oh man, that game was great. Those you guys did great. And I go, I know, we busted our asses to make sure that those games work. That's just how it goes. QA is extremely important, and kind of the disrespect that they get a lot of time from people outside the industry to go, oh, they're not really devs, they're just QA. Like, we do stuff that devs don't want to do. Anyway, back to the article. In a year that will go down in gaming history due to the sheer number of layoffs and studio closures, Bungie's situation nonetheless stands out, and not for good reasons. It is well known, long-standing studio, despite historic culture problems, had managed to cultivate an increasingly positive community of fans around a beloved game while improving its own internal cultures by gradual degrees. And we heard about that a few years ago, where they got called out for having really bad, like boys club culture, like sexism, racism stuff. Like a lot of that was going on, and it seemed like in the recent years they were trying to make it better. But in the wake of an acquisition that shocked the many Bungie employees we've spoken to, which seemed out of character of the studio's independent streak, it feels like that's all falling apart. Beloved colleagues have been laid off, benefits are vanishing, and many feel the more people-oriented, as one source put it, culture of recent years is being torn apart. Is being torn to pieces by the very Bungie leaders that touted it for so long. Oh, and seemingly those same leaders can retain a vestige of control over a company that's already been sold anyway. Folks still trust is very much feeding into an us versus them between leadership and workers, one person said. That trust has been eroded. Given their actions, questions of whether or not Sony will finally manage to swallow Bungie whole in a few months seems less and less important than the question of whether or not Bungie's current management will do to lead the company forward today. So my opinion on this, I am a Sony fan. You know, I generally like Sony stuff. And I've been a fan of Destiny for almost 10 years. I played the alpha probably back in 2013 or early 2014. So I've been playing Destiny about 10 years. At this point, it's become very obvious to me as a longtime fan of the franchise that the leadership at Bungie is the problem. You know, we have a clan for Destiny 5.9. I play him, Talon. You've seen him do the guide videos. He just did one. We'll put a link up in the top right corner. With that, we like Destiny, and we play with a lot of people who love the game, right? We've done videos on it because we love it. Like, still, even though it has its problems, we love the game. But this management, this C-suite, and these upper management people who don't want to take any responsibility, in my opinion, need to go. And if that requires the community looking at this and going, okay, so money's a problem, we're not going to spend money on this game anymore until something changes. At which point, then Sony can come in and take over and, you know, kick that C-suite out. I'd be okay with seeing that, even if it meant, you know, Bungie laid off the talent, because I'd love to see where everyone just goes, you know what, we're not spending money on your game. Bungie goes, okay, we're going to lay a bunch of people off. Eventually they have to cave and they're going to have to give up control to Sony anyway. And then Sony calls back those people who got let go and goes, hey, we know that you were trying. So let's, you know, and you did great work while you were here. So let's bring you back and we're going to get your ideas going. The developers at Bungie have been very open in the last couple interviews that we've seen. Bungie has basically been trying to make Destiny better and make it more of what the player base wants. Leadership basically fearing like, oh, we're going to lose this company because we made a deal that if we're not constantly making money, we're going to lose the company, because they weren't making enough money, so they needed the money in the first place. So they went to Sony. You know, they basically made the deal with the devil. I'm not saying Sony's a devil, but it's a deal with the devil, right? Like you see that they shook, right? I saw some people on Twitter referring to as like the deal with the Ahamkara wish, right? The monkey's paw that Bungie's funny enough known for. That they're like, well, we need money. Let's sell to Sony, but we're gonna make it so that we're kind of contractors. We're independent. We can do whatever we want. And as long as we're making money, we're not gonna have to worry about them taking over and changing out our leadership and doing whatever they want with the company. Sony was probably like, fine. I mean, there's a chance that Sony looked at that and was like, hey, you know, fine, your profits are going to slip enough for us to take over eventually, so fine. But I think it's happening sooner than anyone thought, and they're kind of stuck. I do not see a way that Bungie can get out of this. I don't see a way where Bungie gets to maintain control of Destiny and the studio, at least not with the leadership that is going on there. And right now, in my opinion, that leadership all needs to go. It's like an infected wound. Like it needs to be like that needs to be completely cut out and removed, and then it can really start to heal. Because with the leadership they have, it's clear that leadership does not know how to handle money. They're basically out to save their own asses and throw everyone else under the bus. They don't care if they have great talent, because they're just going to throw them out to save a buck so that they don't lose their big executive bonuses. And this is a big problem with the gaming industry. And I'm sorry if I'm getting like upset about this, but this takes me back to late 2009 when I was let go. Like the first thing they thought was, hey, we'll just get rid of the QA. Like we're losing money. We'll just get rid of the QA. None of the leadership. Peter Moore didn't take a pay cut. He was still making millions of dollars, right? And John Riccitello from Unity, he was still making millions of dollars. Those guys, they want to cover their ass, and they do it at the expense of the players and the devs, and the community managers and the composers and the people that we love who make the games we love. I've been a fan of Destiny, but as of right now, I'm probably not going to be buying the final shape because I don't want to go like, hey, the manager, what they're doing, they're basically trying to extort us to go, hey, you better do that or more people you like are going to get laid off. I don't know what to tell you. I'd rather have that happen. Let them lay them off. Sony come in there, clean house, get all of these Bungie C-suite heads of departments, get them all out of there. Find the people who've done great work, move them up and explain to them, hey, the situation is different. We need you guys producing, and we're going to give you the money to make it happen. And let's make Bungie, the great company that it's supposed to be, that they told us it was, that we're now finding out is all just, bullshit. Anyway, that's been a long kind of rant going through this and talking about these downsides of the gaming industry. I'd really love to know what you guys think, because this is like a big problem with the gaming industry this year, that devs just get thrown under the bus. And I understand that a lot of it comes from overhiring in 2020 and 2021 to deal with the global events. I don't want to say it because we don't want to get demonetized. I don't know if YouTube's still doing that, but to deal with the global events, right? Where everyone was locked up. You had a ton of money, so you're playing a bunch of video games, spending a ton of money on Destiny and Apex, microtransactions, whatever. We get it. People overhired. But Bungie going, no, we're not gonna take pay cuts. Like, why do you think that people at Nintendo still revere Iwata, right? Because he was the first guy to lead from the front and say, hey, I make a lot of money. I've made enough money. I'm going to take a 50% pay cut so we can avoid laying off as many people as possible. And I don't think they laid anyone off, right? If I am Pete Parsons, right? Or let's say Pete Parsons is me. If I'm in that, that thing, Pete Parsons has made millions and millions and millions of dollars. If I'm him and I know I have the talent and I know I have the people and I want to really preserve that culture that I'm trying to say I want to preserve, I'm going, you know what? I'll do the Steve Jobs the Steve Wozniak, right? The $1 a year, right? Just, you know what? For a couple of years, I'll take $1 a year. I've got $50 million. I'll take $1 a year. We're gonna turn it around and make this company work, and we're not gonna lose people if we can help it. Unless it's absolutely positively we can't cut anywhere else, right? That's just me. And maybe that's why I'm not an executive, because I won't just throw people under the bus to make money. But what do you think about this? Are you planning on supporting Destiny through the final shape? Because I feel kind of weird doing it. I honestly, I'd rather not, and just let Sony take over and get that whole leadership suite out of there, because someone who's been affected the same way these people have, I feel for them, and I understand that it's a big deal. But let us know, please, down in the comments what you guys think. We would love to hear from you. I'll be responding. I'm sure Talon will respond to some comments as well. Let's have a discussion, because this is just another thing where, if Sony's going to come in and either take over Destiny or shut Bungie down, I'd rather have them take over Destiny and really bring the people back. But there's a possibility they could just go, you know what, we're going to cut our losses with this studio. It costs us way too much money. It was a bad investment, but now we know better to do more of our due diligence and get it right next time. But let us know, like I said, down in the comments below what you think, because this is a big trend in the gaming industry right now, and I'm just interested in hearing what other people in the industry or out have heard of and thought. So anyway, again, I'm Bobby here with Direct Gaming. Let us know down in the comments what you think, and thank you so much. If you stayed here the whole time, consider subscribing and leave a like. Let us know that you enjoy what we do, or if not, leave a dislike and let us know in the comments down below what we can improve for next time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.